Monday, November 4th, and today we are in Shah Alam today, and we will be talking about Act 4 of Pygmalion. Together with me are my friends. Together we are four panelists, and me myself, I am Muhammad Fahad bin Mahrudin, and the second panelist is Mike Maximilian, and the third panelist is Ahmad Haras, and the last panelist for tonight, the great and gracious Aiman Jeffrey. Also, firstly, we would like to welcome everyone to our podcast. Today, we will be exploring Act 4 of Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Act 4 is a pivotal point where tensions reach a boiling point, 100 degrees Celsius. Woo, so hot. And we get a deeper look at the themes like social class, Eliza and Mr. Higgins, transformation, the transformation of Eliza from a flower girl to a very classy lady, I would say, and identity, where we can see the identity of the characters in our story. Jane will dig into themes as well as Shaw's use of similes, metaphors, symbols, and some particular memorable scenes. Let's start by discussing some of the major themes. Mike, would you like to start things off?
Yeah, sure. It's, Thanks, Fahad. To start, one of the core themes in Act 4 is transformation. Throughout the play, we have seen Eliza undergo a remarkable transformation. She learning to speak, behave, and present herself like a member of the upper class. But by Act 4, she also realized that her transformation is largely superficial. Although she has changed outwardly, her inner feelings and sense of worth are still a point of struggle. She questioned whether this transformation has actually elevated her or simply made her more aware of the limitation imposed by society. This theme really speaks to show critics of social structures that try to shape individuals without respecting their core identity.
Hmm, yes, that's spot on, Mike. The theme of identity is another crucial one. Eliza's identity crisis becomes particularly pronounced here. After being treated as a project by Higgins, she lost a sense of who she truly is. In Act 4, she's no longer just a flower girl, but she feel doesn't feel fully integrated into the world of upper class either. There's a line where she asks Higgins, "What's to become of me?" This really captures her feeling, a fear that she'll be left in a kind of social limbo. This question of identity and self-worth highlights her journey to assert herself beyond Higgins' expectation.
That's a great point, Haras. Also,
Yeah.
it ties into the theme of social class that Shaw critiques throughout Pygmalion. Act 4 shows that it is not enough for Eliza to speak properly. Higgins and society view her as someone who can act the part but can't truly belong because of her background. This class distinction becomes evident in the way Higgins reacts to her. He doesn't fully respect her, even though she's passed his so-called experiment. Shaw seems to argue that class is not something that you can escape simply by changing your speech or manners.
Thank you, our panelists, for tonight for our the points given. I would have to agree with all of the points given. It can be sad to see that Eliza herself is, how should we say this? She is stuck in the middle of a passageway between the two classes. She is supposedly higher class, but she feels lower class. That turns out that we cannot change who we are inside. Okay, so these are really important insights. It's fascinating how Shaw tackles both the transformations Eliza undergoes and the restrictions that she still faces. Before we move on, let's quickly revisit the themes to give the listeners of our podcast tonight a clearer picture. Mike, would you briefly summarize the themes of the Pygmalion?
Yeah, sure. So in Act 4, we see transformation, identity, and social class as central themes. Transformation is shown as Eliza external change, yet it leaves her questioning her sense of herself. The themes of identity centers around her realization that she has become someone else's creation, which lead to an identity crisis. And finally, social class, which reflect show uh, critics of a rigid society where someone like Eliza, regardless of her improvement, still struggle to be accepted.
Perfect summary, Mike. Now let's move on to Shaw's use of similes. Aiman, could you talk about a few that will stand out from the rest?
Of course, Pak Ad. In Act 4, Shaw uses similes to deepen our understanding of Higgins' disdain and Eliza's frustration. One vivid smile is when Higgins refers to Eliza's reaction as being like a presumptuous insect. This is significant because it reveals how dismissive is of Eliza's feelings. By comparing her to an insect, he sees her as small, bothersome, and insignificant. It's a belittling comparison that captures Higgins' inability to see Eliza's worth beyond her role in her experiment.
That's so true, Aiman. This simile also adds depth to our understanding of social dynamics between them. It shows that Higgins still doesn't acknowledge Eliza's transformation or her humanity. Instead, he views her like an annoying insect, as you said before, that doesn't deserve his respect. It's such a small phrase, but it carries a lot of weight.
I also found that interesting, and I think it's worth noting how Shaw uses this simile to add a touch of irony. One of, on one hand, Higgins is supposedly the refined, educated professor, yet he often uses crude comparison to dismiss Eliza. It almost like Shaw is suggesting that despite his education, Higgins lacks the emotion intelligence to relate to others, especially someone like Eliza.
Well observed, my compadres. But I would say that in the story where Higgins belittles Eliza and he simil- symbolizes her with an insect, I would say that Higgins himself is a bad person. So the similes that Shaw uses are subtle but powerful, underscoring the themes we've discussed. Let's now move on to metaphors. Mike, would you elaborate on any metaphors that you have explored?
Yeah, definitely. One of the key metaphor in Act 4 is the sleepers. Throughout Eliza training, bringing Higgins his slipper was part of her duties. But in Act 4, when she throws them at him, the slippers represent her anger and rejection of his subversion role. They are no longer just slippers, they symbolize the control he had over her. This act of throwing them is a small rebellion, a way of showing that she's done being his obedient creation.
I love that analysis, Mike. It's also as if by throwing the slippers, Eliza is rejecting everything he forced upon her. She's saying that she's no longer willing to be molded or trained by him. I think it's beautiful, quite rebellion that symbolizes her desire to be seen as her own person, not just a project.
And it's interesting because Higgins doesn't seem to grasp the symbolic significance of this act. He brushes it off, showing just how disconnected he is from her feelings. This metaphor really emphasizes the gap in their understanding and highlights how much Eliza has outgrown her role.
Incredible insights, everyone. The where Higgins doesn't seem to grasp the symbolic. In my opinion, I don't think that he isn't grasp the significance, but I think that he is just brushing it off to the side because he doesn't think that what he did is wrong. But for Eliza, she's like, Oi, why are you doing this, man? If I would hit you. But Eliza is she won't hit Higgins, but inside, only she knows. The sleepers are such a powerful metaphor, showing us the depth of Eliza's internal struggle where we cannot see directly. Moving on, let's discuss the symbols in Act 4. Haras, can you guide us through some symbols that is used by Shaw?
Absolutely, I'm Fahad. Another powerful symbol in Act 4 is the ring that he gave to Eliza. When she returns it to him, it represents her desire to sever the bond they shared. She essentially saying that she doesn't want to be owned by Higgins. In giving the ring back, she's rejecting his influence over her. This moment is quite emotional because it shows her determination to reclaim her autonomy.
Yes, and it is interesting because Higgins reacts very angrily when she tries to return the ring. This reaction shows that, on some level, he feels a possessive attachment to her, even if he doesn't realize it himself. It adds layers to his character and suggests that his detachment is partly a facade.
I agree, Mike. The ring also symbolizes the transactional nature of their relationship up to this point. Eliza realized that the gifts he gave her were part of a deal to shape her into something she didn't ask to become. By returning it, she is reclaiming her independence.
Excellent points, everybody. Well, the interesting point where Higgins has the audacity to be angry when Eliza does things like that to her, but he cannot comprehend when he did those things to her. But Higgins cannot accept when she does it back to him. Shows that Higgins, in my opinion, the mental strong he is not really that strong. And for the detachment, I think for nowadays it would be called nonchalant, right? Nonchalant is a very popular term nowadays, but I think Higgins fails in this way to show his emotions. But maybe he does have a feeling towards Eliza, maybe he doesn't. We don't really know.
True, true.
Like the rings and the slipper add such depth to Act 4, helping us understand the complex dynamics between these characters, where they have such complicated relationships, I would say. Eliza realize, uh, realizes that these gifts are merely superficial for her. Now, to round things out, let's discuss the other notable scenes or moments. Ayman, did you have any particular scene that has resonated closely with you?
Yes, of course, Pak. One scene that stands out is when Eliza questions Higgins about what's to become of her. This is a powerful moment because she is no longer the meek flower girl who listens passively. She is, she is asserting herself, asking the difficult questions, and challenging Higgins to see her as a person with her own future. This scene is intense because it shows how much Liza has evolved, and it also reveals Higgins' shortcomings as a mentor and a person.
Yeah, for me, it's heartbreaking too, because Eliza realizes that her transformation might have isolated more than helped her. Her skin now set apart from being her former life, yet she's not fully accepted into the new social class either. It really shows Shaw's critique of a society that cares more about appearance than the person beneath.
I think that's why Pygmalion is still so relevant. The play questions whether social mobility is truly attainable or if it's just a escape. For Eliza, the transformation was supposed to open door, but it left her questioning her own worth.
Powerful thoughts indeed. how I would say that Pygmalion, what we are talking about tonight, is highly relevant for our world today because we can see around us the act of classes where there are people in the high class and there are people in the low class. I would say that it is sad for Eliza to have grown out of her original class, but still isn't practically being in the higher class. She is in such a weird position. Before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize what we covered. So, for tonight, we discussed the themes of transformation, identity, and social class, which is highly prevalent in Pygmalion, especially in our Act 4 that we have discussed tonight. With examples showing how these themes play out in Act 4, we explored, we explored similes like Higgins comparing Eliza to an insect, where this means that he wants, his intention is where he wants to belittle her. As we can see, like an insect is a small, insignificant thing in a negative way, but insects are highly relevant, especially in the nature. Just for thoughts, okay? And for the metaphors, such as the significance of the slippers, the where the slippers where Elijah gets mad and shows her frustration where she used the slippers, and the ring emerged as a major symbol of Eliza's reclamation of herself, where she did not want to accept the ring. And the scenes we discussed underscored her growth and struggles that we will see and we have seen towards throughout Pygmalion itself. Thanks everyone for such an in-depth conversation. And thank you, listeners, tuning in to our next session where we will talk on Act 5. We hope you gain some insights into what is the brain from Shaw and the literary elements in Pygmalion that is conveyed and profound about society, transformation, and self worth. Until next time, it's Farhad. See you next time.
Thank you, Farhad and other hosts. See you next time.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
you.